Hello and welcome to Pick Your Poison. I am your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca. I don't know what I am.
You're the other co-host.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so what poison are we talking about today?
We are going to be talking about Belladonna or deadly nightshade.
Not deadly nightshade.
Well, there's quite a few interesting plants we're going to talk about in this family. The family is Solanaceae, and so there's quite a few. There's quite a few in the nightshade family that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to actually
Solanaceae?
No, I'm going to break it up. We're going to actually talk
Solar
about
shot glass? Did I say that right?
We're going to talk about some main ones, and then like next time I'm going to mention some other ones because there's some good stories to go with it.
The poison. Cusco's poison.
Okay. But yeah, but there's some drama in this one. So I really wanted to get through that, and I think it's going to take most of our episode. So
fine. I'm here for that.
All right. So Belladonna is a pretty well-known poison. A lot of people have heard of Belladonna or deadly nightshade, a lot of people have heard about it in like books or movies. It's a pretty popular one.
I dated a girl in college named Belladonna.
That's okay. Well, Belladonna actually comes from the name beautiful woman. A long time ago, people used to put Belladonna drops in their eyes.
I'm sitting next to one right now.
Oh my gosh.
Hey-o.
But the people used to put these drops in their eyes. Ladies, like I think in Italy, Europe, used to put drops in their eyes that consisted of Belladonna because it would constrict, the blood vessels. It would make their pupils dilate.
Oh.
And so they thought that made them look, sultry. And
it probably made men subconsciously believe that they were actually attracted to them, because that's a natural response of enjoying what you're looking at is the dilation of the pupils.
Yeah, well, and I guess men, they love to know that you like looking at them. So
they love to think that you're attracted to them when you are in fact not. That tracks.
Well, hey, when you're a woman back then, though, you gotta, you didn't exactly have rights or able to make money.
I'm
yourself.
27 years old. I'm already a burden to my parents.
Anyway, so what do? You marry a guy, then you poison him. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That didn't always happen.
How Victorian.
It didn't always happen. Well, I mean,
I'm quite put out.
But we're actually, we're going to talk about what the plant kind of looks like. It's a tall, bushy plant. It's got small, shiny black berries when it's ripe. Now, they get ripe around like fall, and there's actually a story I read. It was a more modern story where a woman kept coming into this ER. And she would have hallucinations. She would be sick. And every fall, they would see her. Like, this is a small town. They kind of knew who she was.
Oh, right. Okay.
It turns out she was going outside and picking these berries.
Yes.
And it turns out that she was eating these deadly nightshade berries thinking they were something else. So people still get accidental poisonings with this plant. So just be aware of that.
Crazy.
It's still around, and it still causes problems.
That's one of the parts that freaks me out about these poisons is they're just around.
Yeah, they're just hanging out. They're just waiting for some unsuspecting, person to pick them and eat them.
Mm-hmm.
And now, they don't grow with the intention of poisoning people. Of course, it's something it develops to avoid being eaten.
Yes,
obviously.
Thank you for clearing that up.
I feel like I have to.
There's no malice on the part of the plant.
You know the kind of world we live in, so we should probably explain that.
Okay.
But even rubbing the leaves on the skin can cause a pretty nasty rash. It's a pretty nasty plant.
Mm-hmm.
So be aware of that. All of this plant, the whole plant, is used when making the Belladonna poison or, that kind of thing. There's people who used to make it. They were professional poisoners. We're actually going to talk about one today whose specialty was this particular poison.
Wow. Okay, where were we?
All right. So it's actually been said that this is the poison that Juliet took in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet to.
Oh, it's not mentioned specifically? What?
Death. I don't think so, but
It's a good guess?
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
Because of what it does.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've read Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I remember this
High school for me.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of tragedies where everybody just dies. So.
It was one way to write a play.
Yeah. And weren't they really young? Like, wasn't she like 13?
They were. They were teenagers at the most, I think.
If you're 13, it's not love. He's just a guy. Hit him with your car.
A plague of both your houses.
Yeah. He was the best character. And anyway, I'm going to move on because, opinions. But so deadly nightshade, it's found across Europe, Asia, North America, prefers the shade. You've got these, it looks moody for a plant. Okay. It's got like these purplish, can I say, is purplish a word? Purplish, tubular type flowers. And from those flowers grow these berries. And that's usually what's ingested. But all parts of the plant, of course, are poisonous.
Well, the whole thing is poisonous.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the berries, they kind of go from being green to red to basically black by the time fall comes around. It's just how it progresses.
When you said it looks moody, all I could think of was that stuffed turtle you sent me.
Yes.
So.
Timmy. Anyway, so the main poison in this plant, you'll actually recognize this name, I think, working in healthcare, atropine.
Yes.
Atropine is actually used in medicine to treat bradycardia because it raises the heart rate. So in small doses, it can actually be used medicinally. Now that's if you have a high heart rate. I mean, a low heart rate. You don't want to take this if you have a regular heart rate. It just doesn't work like that. So that's when it would be a poison. But in large amounts, you would have symptoms that would occur rather rapidly and can last hours to days before you die if you're not treated. Yeah, okay. It's pretty rough.
Okay.
Now atropine, I actually find this really interesting. Atropine is named after Atropos, who was one of the 3 fates, Greek fates. Have you ever seen Hercules, the Disney Hercules?
I actually don't think I've seen that movie all the way through.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
well, I'm trying to think of some like...
Sorry, Michael Bolton. My fault.
I'm trying to think of a good example. Like if you like Greek mythology, you'll know who I'm talking about anyway. But even if you haven't and you've seen that movie Hercules, there's those 3 old women and they share an eyeball. Like they're talking to Hades about the future. Anyway, So just totally punched that. So they there's Lachesis, Clotho, and Atropos. Atropos is the one that actually cuts the thread of life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's named for that.
Yeah, it's named for the one who basically causes death.
All right.
So I thought that was interesting. So it's named after her. It also contains hyoscyamine and scopolamine.
Not
scopolamine. And that's another word you'll probably see come up later when we talk about other.
Of course.
Anyway, so
a scopulous episode, if you will.
But most people know what atropine is. It is a anticholinergic. I know you've heard that word before. It basically blocks the action of acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter that sends signals between the central nervous system and the cells. It mainly affects the heart and digestive systems, though.
So no big deal.
So, yeah. So your symptoms are going to include things like rapid heart rate, dry mouth and throat. That would be the anticholinergic effects that you see. You ever take Benadryl and your throat gets really dry? Because it's an anticholinergic too. Maybe not to this level, but pupil dilation, nausea, vomiting, confusion, hallucinations, seizures, coma, and death. So it has a lot.
That last one, tell you what.
And then when I say hallucinations, this stuff can cause some horrifying hallucinations and delusions. So, yeah. Some people have eaten the berries, by the way, and like lived like a few berries here or there. And some people have eaten one berry and died. So like one berry, there's no like, you can't really tell how much atropine or, toxin is in just one berry at a time. So it's, don't get cocky if you want to try a new challenge. Just don't do it. Don't do it. So there is a treatment, physostigmine. It increases the acetylcholine content in the body.
Right, combats what the belladonna is doing.
But like I said before, given in small doses, atropine is actually used to treat a slow heart rate. And
to get it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to actually treat stomach spasms, believe it or not, because it deals with the digestive system sometimes. It's also been used to treat poisoning from nerve gases, which is funny enough. So yeah. So like I said last time, the poison's in the dose, right? So some of these things
You
can
did
actually,
say that.
if you're having a certain kind of effect, it can actually reverse that effect by what it does, which would normally be toxic to you. So one fact I thought was interesting, a long time ago when they were trying to figure out how to do surgeries on people and actually put them to sleep before surgery, you know, anesthetics.
Yes.
An early anesthetic was actually using belladonna, hemlock, which we discussed last time,
Unreal.
mandrake, and henbane, which are actually part of the nightshade family, which we'll talk about later, opium, and some other different stuff. So like they would just mix this stuff up, and maybe you'd wake up.
Oh, wow.
Maybe you wouldn't, but hey, either way, you wouldn't feel anything.
If the surgery were successful, then you had to survive the anesthesia.
Yeah.
My God.
So
I'm so glad to be living right now with just antibiotics.
Yeah.
And all sorts of things that
we really
are so
don't,
much easier.
Even with today's anesthesia, we actually don't fully know how it works.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to stop talking about that.
we know it works, but we don't exactly know how.
Okay. You are damaging my sense of certainty with my future.
unless in the last few years something's happened that I haven't heard about, we really don't know
and
how.
I know you, and I know that if it's happened, you'll have heard about it.
You know.
Regarding your special interest, you're going to drill down.
Okay,
you're going to have that on tap.
Okay,
I'm so scared. Please continue.
So I mentioned that there are some quite a few relatives in this family, the nightshade family. So some that you might be surprised by are pepper plants, tomato plants, potato plants. So you can eat like the fruit. Actually, people used to think tomatoes when they first came here were poisonous. Because it's part of the nightshade family.
Tragic.
You can eat tomatoes and you can eat potatoes, but you don't want to eat the leaves of the plant. Those are going to be toxic.
What about tomatoes and potatoes?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
If you're pronouncing it that way now. Also, you know, pepper plants, eggplants. Eggplant is part of the nightshade family.
Oh, well, I mean, I knew that.
So,
that ridiculous looking
also
tobacco.
Tobacco is a part of the nightshade family.
Well.
So yeah, you've also got things we're going to talk about, I think, next episode. Jimson weed. I've got a great story concerning that one. And mandrakes, you know, like Harry Potter, they talk about mandrakes. Well, it's not the same, like, you know, mandrakes are a thing, but they don't like cry when you pull them out, you know, obviously. But we're gonna have a talk about those too.
Sure.
Mandragora. Also henbane, which we'll talk some more about too. Anyway, so those are some of the relatives in that category. But I want to get to a story where we talk about a popular poisoner who really liked to use this particular poison.
Let's do this.
So we are going back to 25 CE.
Oh, wow.
Where a woman named Locusta was born. I hope I'm saying her name right.
Locusta?
Locusta? No, I'm just kidding. It's Locusta.
Locusta.
She was born a peasant in Gaul, which today would be France. And she was this botanist, herbalist, sort of, you know, just messing around, doing some witchy stuff.
French stuff.
With you know, I guess what today's crunchy bombs would be. I don't know. Whatever. Okay. So this was her. This was her thing. Experimenting, you know, with different stuff. So nothing wrong with that. If you're a crunchy mom, do your thing. I don't suggest you do what she did, though, because you might go to jail. So we're talking about first century Rome, and there was a lot of drama, first of all, in first century Rome. I mean, this was not, the thing I'm going to read to you is not in any way all that different from everyday life.
Okay.
So one name you might recognize is Caligula. Do you remember that?
Okay.
Remember that guy?
It's about to get weird.
Remember that guy? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we're not necessarily talking about him a whole lot. I just want to mention him because he's in this family circle here. And his real name was actually Gaius, I think. Caligula means little boot or something like that. It was a nickname.
Oh,
that
I didn't know that.
He was given. Yeah.
Okay.
So his actual name was Gaius. And he was Emperor Augustus's great grandson, and he was recognized as Tiberius's heir, there was a whole lot. I'm not going to go into every single little piece of this information because there's a lot.
Okay.
But he actually became emperor when Tiberius was injured during this game, like ceremonial game that was going on. Not a whole lot to do, so you back then.
He was,
besides poisoning people apparently and getting injured in these ceremonial games.
He was injured or he was killed?
I'm getting there. He was injured and he was expected to die. So they went ahead and called Caligula in and were like, looks like you're next, bro. And, he woke up. He regained consciousness.
Oh, my God.
But since it would be rather embarrassing to have him wake back up when they've already got somebody else, they just went in and smothered him. Yeah.
That's real?
That's real. So,
that's what happened?
Yeah.
They
just went in and smothered him. So there's that. So now there's a lot of stories about Caligula. Some are true, some maybe not so much. There's a lot of suspect, he was
stuff. Crazy.
He was pretty crazy. But yeah, I'm sure you've heard some stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he was actually assassinated by his own guard in 4 CE. I think I wrote that down wrong. 4 CE doesn't sound right.
No, because you mentioned Locusta.
No, she was born in 25 CE.
She was born in 25.
Yes,
okay.
This is
that
just some
AD.
backstory.
That's the same thing as AD, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
just a different moniker.
Anyway, so he was assassinated by his own guard. Now we come to Claudius, who comes into power. Now this is where things were already interesting. Things are about to get even more interesting.
I'm on board.
So Claudius becomes emperor and has his first wife killed, as well as her lover.
That is one way to do it.
And he does this because he wants to marry his niece, Agrippina.
Okay.
Now he literally...
Aquafina? Is that what you said?
No, he literally had to change the law to be able to incestuously marry his niece.
What was her name? Aquafina?
Agrippina. Okay, I know. Aquafina. You know what? She deserves that because... Whew, okay. Now, she is suspected of having poisoned her late husband before
Dasani.
this. So, red flags already. Right? Red flags.
Did you catch what I just said?
Yes, I caught what she said.
You got to acknowledge when I hit a home run over here.
I'm trying to get through
Dasani,
this.
Aquafina.
I'm trying to get through this. There's a lot going on.
Fiji's still on tap. No pun intended.
Okay.
I'm on fire. Let's go.
Oh, no. I might find us a Fiji.
Okay.
So they both had children from their previous marriages. Okay, I need you to listen so I don't have to repeat myself because there's a lot of names here.
You don't have any faith in me. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Claudius had Britannicus, fun name.
The encyclopedia guy.
And Agrippina had Lucius, who would later be known as Nero.
Wow.
Yes. So we're gonna talk about this guy a little bit too.
Oh my God.
Now, so we've already got several red flags with this Agrippina chick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Possibly poisoned her first husband, or the husband before Claudius.
Dasani.
Okay, that one.
Mm-hmm.
So Claudius wanted his son Britannicus to be his heir. Obviously, I mean it is his son, and
right.
You would think that would be how it is. But Agrippina was set on her son Lucius, or eventually Nero taking that spot. It's all about who's going to get power.
Boy. Somebody's
right?
going to die.
Yeah. So this was a common thing in history.
Somebody's going to die. Checks notes by poison.
Yeah. So she talks Claudius into her plans to make Lucius his successor. Not sure how she does that because okay. But he later goes back on his word and even starts to regret marrying Agrippina.
You don't say.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So Aggie, she seeks out Locusta, who at this time is in jail for a 3rd time for poisoning someone else. Okay, now beforehand she's been bailed out of prison, out of jail a couple of times by these people who have a good amount of influence who have used her to poison other people. So
okay,
she keeps getting thrown in prison.
You mean 2,000 years ago, the rich and powerful could do whatever they wanted?
Oh my God,
crazy!
So she gets thrown in jail. This is the 3rd time she's been in jail, and she basically gets her out and has her concoct a poison to kill her husband, Claudius, in exchange for her freedom. And of course, she agrees. And what you going to do? You're in jail. You've already, you've already been doing this. This is, what you do. So Locusta's poison of choice was said to be belladonna or deadly nightshade, as we've been
because she's a pro.
Right.
Because she's listening to this podcast. She knows what's up.
So, so let me set the scene, okay? It's October 13th. Of course it is. 54 CE. Claudius.
Is that a Friday?
Claudius is at dinner, and he's about to eat his favorite. Mushrooms. Right? Mushrooms. He normally has a taste tester present, which was pretty common. Lots of people had taste testers.
Of course it was, because you could afford for that guy to die.
Right. So
it was
well, it was a very noble profession too. Like, it was seen as very noble. It was like a very honoring position. Like, you know, it was
unreal.
Yeah.
It's obviously the least favorite staff member in the palace.
Yeah. Well, it's somebody like they would have to really trust, I suppose. I mean, after you see him die, I guess you know you're not going to eat it. But anyway, so he normally has this taste tester present, but he is currently indisposed.
Oh boy.
So he's also hammered. Claudius is also hammered on wine, thanks to Agrippina.
Uh-huh.
So he's pretty chill.
You're saying it wrong.
And doesn't think much about there not being anyone to test his food first. So what's he do? He eats the mushrooms, all of them. And not long after finishing, he starts to feel really sick. He starts to have cramping. He starts sweating. He's very short of breath.
He just doesn't seem smart enough to be emperor for a long time, if you ask me.
A lot of them weren't. That's why they weren't emperors for a long time.
All right, go ahead.
And so, what do they do? Back then, it was common to stick a feather down your throat to kind of get you to throw up. It was a...
they didn't have stimulate the gag reflex.
Yeah, they didn't have many...
That's actually clever.
They didn't have a whole lot of things they could do back then. So this is what they did. They would put... they had like antidotes, quote-unquote antidotes, which, may or may not help. They're basically just
and the MRI... the MRI facility around the corner is out of network anyway, so...
There you go. Yeah, I don't think those antidotes are probably paid for by insurance.
Right.
Anyway, so a feather is put down his throat to try and induce vomiting, but Locusta, who thinks ahead apparently, had already had this feather soaked in poison beforehand. And it was enough poison just on the feather to kill.
Oh my God.
Enough. So that was the end of Claudius.
Okay.
No more Claudius.
Okay.
So who's emperor now?
Lucius,
a.k.a. Nero. But Britannicus is still alive and still remains a threat.
And now, still writing his encyclopedias.
How old do you think Britannicus is?
I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna say he's 9.
He's 13.
He's 13. Okay, not much different.
No. So he's 13. So these kids aren't like exactly old.
They're children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of rewarding Locusta for a custard, Locusta? I keep saying her name funny. It feels like in my head, Locusta. For a job well done, Agrippina blames her for the emperor's murder.
Okay.
And has her thrown back in jail to await execution.
Okay. Well done.
She just throws her back in because she feels like she can do that.
Dude.
But Nero decides that she might prove useful to him later.
Wow.
So he frees her again.
Okay.
And strangely enough, Agrippina starts to support Britannicus and his claim to power.
Aquafina with the encyclopedias.
Over Nero, even though she went to great lengths to get him the throne, right?
Right.
So, but the reason she supports Britannicus now is because Nero is having an affair with this poor woman she didn't approve of, whose name, ironically, is Claudia.
That's why she hates her.
That's great. Mm-hmm. So Nero decides it's time to get rid of his stepbrother, right? Yes. And calls upon Locusta, who he has pardoned now, to help poison him. Because why not? She's right there. So this is
my favorite Netflix show.
The first attempt, it should be, honestly. The first attempt fails. It just makes him really sick. But after some experimenting, they started experimenting on some, just trigger warning for animals here. I'm not going to go into detail. But they start experimenting on some livestock.
No, dude.
And once they figure out the dose that will work, they try again.
Yikes.
This time, Britannicus had his taste tester present, but it was brought to him. The poison was brought to him in a different way this time than it was Claudius.
Okay.
So back then it was custom to cool wine with like cold water. So you would be brought like a was it a carafe of wine, and like you would pour cool water on it because it would be kind of hot or warm. You would cool it off.
Okay.
So the taste tester tried the wine, but he didn't try the water meant to cool it off.
The water was poisoned?
The water was poisoned.
Bro.
So when he added it to the wine and drank it, he began to suffer symptoms right there at the table. And they were guests at this dinner as well. And there were people who watched him basically writhe on the floor. And Nero was just like, he's fine. He's just having a seizure. He's fine.
He knew what was going on.
He died a few hours later.
Mm-hmm.
And
Cusco's poison. The poison specifically given to Cusco.
So Agrippina knew exactly what was going on, though. And she was horrified because now if he can kill his stepbrother,
there's no one safe.
Yeah.
He can kill her. He can kill anyone. And it's also it's Nero.
I mean,
we know he's crazy.
My thing is, what does it say? Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Sure.
I mean, she had her husband poisoned.
Of course.
I mean,
they're all animals.
Anyway,
this is the best season. It's the best season finale I've seen. I'll tell you what.
So Nero, he says, you know what? Let's get crazy. He gradually takes away his mother's.
What the heck? Let's get crazy.
His mother Agrippina's privileges and basically exiles her from the palace, and like over time just starts taking away more and more of her privileges, and basically, basically just makes her really nervous all the time. Enjoys doing that too.
Yeah.
So various historians say that Nero had Locusta poison his mother several times, but she was already prepared with these sort of antidotes. I don't know what she was taking, or maybe she just got sick and didn't die from it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But this is kind of, I shouldn't laugh at this. It's kind of comical, but he also loaned her a sabotaged boat. Which sank and collapsed, basically. But she could swim, so she made it.
Okay.
Finally, he just had her stabbed.
Well,
he just sent an assassin and had her stabbed. And then I think he like blamed it on her taking her own life.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway. Also, Nero rewarded Locusta with a full pardon during his reign. Full pardon. Of
course he did.
He also gave her land, estates, money, and he had her teach students her poisoning skills. So that's fun.
Yes. I am so happy about democracy right about now.
so after, but Nero eventually dies. He actually kills himself.
Yes, he went basically insane.
Well, he was also being, I believe, hunted. By someone. Someone else who wanted power, of course.
Of course he was.
So he, after being abandoned by whoever was left with him, he killed himself. And after that, his successor actually had Locusta executed. Like, just was like, bye, because we're not playing this game.
Of course.
A couple other. So that's the story of Locusta, Claudius, Agrippina, the whole soap opera of those particular group of people. Incredible. Emperors. And but she's not the only professional poisoner back then. There was quite a few. Canidia is one. That's her name. Canidia. She
my favorite
was known
country that's not America.
She was known for often mixing honey with hemlock, poisoning people with that. So that's fun.
Okay.
Martina, not the flower place. But she is a minor player in this as well, because the reason why Caligula was able to take the throne after Tiberius, she poisoned Germanicus, who was Tiberius's nephew and would have been his heir. So
unbelievable.
That's how that happened. But like I said, I didn't want to go into a lot of the details there because it gets confusing when you have people fighting for power and like all sorts of people start dying and who's my heir now. So, but that's how that happened. Now. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the story of how Locusta used deadly nightshade.
That's insane. There's like 4 different people who are trying to poison everyone.
Yeah, and it's funny because she's poisoning she's poisoning for Agrippina.
Aquafina. You're saying it wrong.
Because she wants Nero, her son,
to be emperor.
But then she's going to be poisoning Agrippina because Nero's like, yeah, I don't really want her around, so she's killing my vibe, telling me I can't date who I want to date.
My flow chart's all messed up.
So, like, Locusta obviously is like, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to not get executed. So that's what she was playing.
For sure.
But yeah, so that's the story of Locusta. And we're going to talk about some other people who were similar, or like people who basically kept it in the family when it came to poisons. So
totally.
We'll definitely talk like the Borgias and all that. We'll talk about a couple of different families, but that's, yeah.
So in part 2, what are we going to get to? We literally split this content into 2 different episodes. What is part 2 going to cover? We're
going to talk about a story with the early settlers in Jamestown.
Oh.
And how they discovered what Jimson weed was and how they eventually used it.
Awesome.
And then we'll probably talk about a few more plants in that family, like henbane, a couple of things there. And if we have time, we'll go into something close to it too.
Awesome. All right. That's the pod for now. Thanks for listening, y'all.